This is just a very simple tutorial on how to factorize and solve quadratics. Now we're going to consider a simple form of quadratics in this video. First of all, what is a quadratic? Well, all quadratics can be written in the form ax squared plus bx plus c, as we can see here. And for us to be able to solve them, we need to make sure we make that equal to 0. It is this x squared term that defines that it is a quadratic. And all a, b and c are representing are the coefficients and numbers in front of each of these terms. And we're just going to consider a very simple example of this where the a value is 1. Now the equation we're going to have a look at is x squared minus x minus 6 is equal to 0. Now what we mean by factorizing is we were trying to look for a solution where we have two brackets, usually with an x term in and another integer value which is equal to 0. So if you hear or you read the word factorization with a quadratic, we're looking for double brackets. Now to be able to factorize, we have to ask ourselves two very simple and linked questions. What two numbers will multiply to make your c value? Our c value in this case is minus 6. But also the same two numbers must also add to make your b value. And in this case b is minus 1. Remember, in algebra, if there is no number next to your algebra term, we have to assume there is a 1 there. So minus 1. Now to go about solving this little problem, I would write down all the factor pairs of your c value. So to make 6, we can either have 1 and 6, we could have 2 and 3, and they are the only factors of 6. Now to decide which factor pair to use, we also then have to look at this b value of minus 1. Now we're looking for a difference or an addition of these numbers to make 1, and you can see here that the factor pair that will do that is 2 and 3. So I've selected and got the correct numbers. I now need just to double check whether I've got the signs correct or not, because at the moment 2 times by 3 gives me positive 6, not negative 6. 2 add 3 gives me 5, not minus 1. But if I add a negative sign here in front of my minus 3, 2 plus minus 3 is minus 1. 2 times by minus 3 does give me minus 6. So having found that 2 and minus 3 solves my little problems here, I now know that my two factorized brackets is x plus 2, I've got my plus 2 from here, and x minus 3, my second number. So that's how to factorize a simple quadratic when a is a value of 1. How now do we solve it? Well, what we mean by solving it is at what value of x does the equation become 0? What we're actually looking for are the places where the quadratic equation crosses the x-axis. Okay, so the y value here is 0. Now usually you might expect to get two solutions for quadratics. This isn't always the case, but most of the time when you're faced with these in exams, you'll be looking for two possible solutions. And this is because either this bracket here has got to be 0, because this number times by this number must give me 0. Now for that to be the case, either x plus 2 bracket must be equal to 0, or x minus 3 bracket must be equal to 0. That's the only way I can multiply two numbers to get the answer of 0, is if one of the numbers is 0. So let's just look at the left hand side. X plus 2 equals 0. What x value gives me that? Well, x minus 2. And if you're looking at this from an examination practice, I would be underlining or boxing, somehow highlighting my key answer there. What about the right hand side? Or x minus 3 equals 0. What x value gives me that? Well, x is equal to positive 3 this time. So I've now solved my quadratic equation. What does this mean in real terms? Let's try and sketch the quadratic. Well, quadratics are either, I would call them happy curves or unhappy curves. Now we can decide whether it's happy or unhappy just by looking at our a value, this a coefficient. If it is positive, so if a is positive, then it is a happy curve. If a is negative, then we get an unhappy curve. It's an easy way to remember that. And here we have a is equal to 1, a positive 1, so we know in this example we're looking at a positive happy curve, not a negative one. We also know that x has got to be minus 2 and 3 when y is 0. So on our x-axis we know it's going to go through minus 2 and 3. The only other place it's going to cross the axis is the y-axis. And just like normal linear equations, the y-intercept is given by the integer value in our equation, so our c value. And in this equation, we've already seen we've got minus 6 as our c value. So we cross the y-axis at minus 6. I now know what it's going to look like, a happy curve. I know the 3 places where it will cross. And now you're going to make a sketch of the quadratic equation to look something like that. And that's how we factorize quadratic equations, solve them, and then finally sketch them.